From the Oregon State University Extension Service, this is Pollination, a podcast that tells the stories of researchers, land managers, and people like you who are making bold strides to improve the health of pollinators. I'm your host, Dr. Adoni Malathopoulos, Associate Professor of Pollinator Health in the Department of Horticulture. If you've been listening to the show for a while, you no doubt remember an episode with Miles Dakin from Pollinator Partnership. He was telling us about the bee-friendly farming certification that they offer. And in that episode, you may have heard me say something like, wouldn't it be great to have this program in the Pacific Northwest region? Well, that is what my guest today is here to talk about. Cody Wilson is the bee-friendly farming Pacific Northwest associate. He's been working closely with an existing certification body, Live, which certifies sustainable wine growing practices. Live recently has adopted the bee-friendly farming practices within their label. In this episode, we're going to hear a little bit about that initiative, but also we're going to hear about another project that Cody's involved with that also is pertinent to the Pacific Northwest. That is identifying pollinator plants that can be used around blueberry fields that bring in bees, but don't bring in any of the pest insects. It's going to be a great show about bee-friendly farming, but I also just want to let you know, you might hear the airplane in the background. I'm going on holidays. So we won't have an episode until January, but I have lined up some really great interviews for the new year. So I'm looking forward to talking with you. In the meantime, have a great holiday season, and let's turn things over to Cody Wilson this week on Pollination. Well, Cody, welcome to Pollination.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Andoni. Been looking forward to this.
Me too. When I first saw you, at one of the vineyards, I think we had just arrived. I was like, well, I gotta get you on a podcast. And so much has happened. There's been so much activity that you've been doing in the region that it's just been hard to catch you. So I'm glad to pin you down now in the slow season. And I guess a few years ago, we had Miles Dakin on the show talking about bee-friendly farming, and now this is, firmly in your wheelhouse. Can you catch us up on developments with this program?
Yeah, absolutely. Since Miles was on a few years ago, I believe that was back in 2020, there's been a rapid expansion of the program. Currently, bee-friendly farming is at 373,000 acres certified.
Wow.
Which translates to 88,000 acres of forage and habitat being managed by these farmers. This spans across 27 different states and 5 Canadian provinces, and is over 750 growers across over 20 commodity groups. So it's been a great expansion. A lot of these certified acres are within California, where this project initially started. But there's been good growth within the Pacific Northwest as well, which I've been happy and been honored to be a part of.
Well, maybe I just want to, I want to catch up and find out, what's been going on in this region. But so you said 88,000 acres of forage. So this is like a key part of it, is that growers are going to be investing not only in, maybe changing their management practices, but really significantly, they're going to be building habitat on farm.
Exactly. And this habitat can come in a number of different forms. It can be permanent habitat, like in hedgerows or set-aside areas with a lot of perennial plants or woody or shrubs that offer a good forage for the bees and other pollinators. But it also can come in the form of cover crops, like between rows within vineyards or orchards or whatnot. So this 88,000 acres can be temporary or permanent habitat.
Okay, that's fantastic. And I guess, I can see the importance of that. I imagine in a place where, bee-friendly farming really got its foothold in some of the more intensive agriculture in California, there isn't a lot of habitat left. So it's so critical. Shifting attention here to the Pacific Northwest, tell us a little bit about how this initiative has unfolded here. What are some of the challenges and, what are some of the unique opportunities in our region?
Absolutely. So just to give you a couple metrics, as far as what we're looking at in the Pacific Northwest, we have 335 farms in the Pacific Northwest.
Wow.
That translates to 36,120 farm acres, which then translates to just about 8,000 acres of forage and habitat being managed in 27 counties across the Pacific Northwest. So we have had some good growth. I obviously would love to see a whole lot more, just because improving habitat for pollinators is pretty crucial. But the interesting thing about this is that a lot of this development of habitat in the Pacific Northwest is largely in part due to our partnership with Live Certified. So Live is a leading certification group that certifies vineyard operators and wineries. Mm-hmm. We've been able to, through discussion with Live and Pollinator Partnership, we've been able to build a partnership that nests the bee-friendly farming standards and practices into the Live certification requirements. As a result, growers that are Live certified also are granted bee-friendly farming certification with little modification to farming and habitat management practices. So that we've been able to capture and aid these Live members and give them access to bee-friendly farming team support, networking, and financial assistance opportunities, and really join a growing group of agricultural producers invested in pollinator health. So it's been great to be working with them.
Oh, that's great. So I know Live. I mean, everybody in the Pacific Northwest knows the brand. You can find it on all sorts of bottles of wine, and its kind of focuses on sustainability. But the way that you've approached it in the Pacific Northwest is really to work with Live on their standards to make it so that when you pick up a bottle of Live wine, you know that it's meeting these standards for bee-friendly farming at the same time.
Exactly, and it's really great to be able to showcase the efforts that these growers are doing. I believe, not trying to speak out of turn, but I believe that Live has about a third of the vineyards are signed up with Live that are in the Pacific Northwest, if not Oregon. But it's great to see these vineyards that are really going above and beyond sustainability standards to really improve habitat for pollinators. It's something that's really been lacking, especially in a crop that's not pollinator dependent. Vineyards don't need pollinators to thrive, but they're still supporting these pollinators and increasing habitat at a substantial rate.
Well, it's interesting. I think that's really an important point. It's not like we'll shift the conversation to blueberries in a second, but it's not like blueberries that require bees for pollination. But I do notice we had Susan Sokol-Blosser on a podcast earlier, and she talked about the Oregon wine industry really being rooted, at least as being a pioneer, that it really had a sensibility of sustainability underneath it, and I can see how bridging this to sort of a Pacific, and I don't know, Live is probably broader than the Pacific, but it seems like it's really a Pacific Northwest certification, really kind of connects the kind of stewardship sense that a lot of vineyards have to pollinator protection.
Absolutely, yeah. They definitely are rooted in the Pacific Northwest, but they have definitely generated a larger name for themselves, and really being able to pull in the pollinator health as a part of their program now has been very beneficial. And it's been great to be able to work with these vineyard operators and show them different techniques and how to incorporate pollinator habitat in and around their production areas.
Maybe tell us a little bit about the challenges of doing that. We heard a little bit from Susan talking about this, but what are, when looking at, you've talked about bee-friendly farming, kind of having this goal of increasing pollinator habitat across the landscape. What are the challenges for doing this in commercial vineyards?
You definitely come across, depending on who you speak with, different challenges across the board. Largely, it can be financial obstacles. It costs money to undergo full restoration projects where you're doing site preparation, then installing habitat and making sure that there's proper watering in place for these plants so that they can thrive, so that the pollinators can get a good set of nutrients through the growing season. But like I said, depending on who you're talking to, it sometimes comes down to water rights, which can be a difficult, tricky thing to obtain. But by putting in these pollinator plants and plantings, it really increases soil health and really offers better water infiltration, so that you get better water retention in your soil. So there's some benefits that come along with it. some of the aspects that come into when you're talking about obstacles can also be notoriety and getting the proper credit for doing this work. And that's why the one of the projects we're working on, Be Friendly Wine, is really beneficial because it really highlights and showcases the work that these vineyard operators are doing. It's sometimes goes unnoticed to the public that there's a lot of these efforts, especially when they're overcoming these burdens that we're talking about, whether financial or labor intensive or whatnot, to be able to get the proper notoriety for the for positive work.
That's great. And you know what, maybe one thing that I did want to mention, because I know some vineyards have, relied on this program, but there's a program that Pollinator Partnership administers through Toyota to provide seeds. Tell us a little bit about that program. And I think you were mentioning before that it really has, grown in this region.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had the opportunity to provide a native seed through a seed grant offered by Toyota to offer native seed to growers that are undergoing these restoration efforts in and around their areas. So in the previous years, we've had very little Pacific Northwest involvement. Over the past 2 years, we've been able to incorporate 9 growers as awardees of the seed grant. My part in this has been little to none. I've been able to just try to connect people and spread the word about this opportunity. Like I mentioned, the financial obstacle is often the hardest hurdle to lift, and to be able to get free plant material, whether that's seed or other opportunities as well, where we're able to offer plant material as well. It helps. Every little bit helps. So anytime we can kind of help get over the biggest hurdle, it makes a difference for these growers.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for that. And I guess, I did want to switch gears now and talk about habitat from the other end. There are seed mixes and forbs but there's also shrubs and other plants. And I know when it comes to the blueberry industry, there have been some attempts to put pollinator habitat, often sometimes in terms of like a meadow, but oftentimes in the form of like a hedgerow, a pollinator hedgerow. You're part of a national project to evaluate different pollinator plants around commercial blueberries. Can you tell us about this work and how ultimately it's going to help growers build habitat in these blueberry farms?
Absolutely. So when you're talking to a lot of berry groups, there's often a little bit of hesitancy about installing pollinator habitat in and around their production areas.
Oh.
A lot of times this hesitancy can come from the worry of pest pressure. And one of the leading pests on people's minds in berry production is the spotted winged Drosophila. And the thought is that if you are putting in pollinator habitat, you might be bringing in pest pressure. Well, I'm part of a specialty crop multi-state blueberry pest program, PEST being an acronym for Pollinator Enhancement Security Tool, in which we're trying to create a comprehensive program designed to help growers create and manage habitat that they're confident is increasing production without increasing pest problems, resulting in a greater crop yield and more sustainable and competitive blueberry production in the U.S. We're working with partners in a lot of the leading states of high bush blueberry production, including Oregon, Washington, Vermont, and Michigan, with a comprehensive take to create a comprehensive take on blueberry production, pollination, pest, and habitat management. So there's a number of objectives through this program. First, we're creating a comprehensive database of non-crop plants that may host pests and increase pest pressures in high bush blueberry, which can obviously be have detrimental effects on production. Currently, we're at about 24 pests with a composition of over 1,925 alternate hosts and 175 beneficial insects. And this database is an amalgamation of field surveys as well as amalgamation of field surveys in 5 participating states, as well as a literature review.
So let me stop you there on that first objective. So there's 2 things. Like we was talking about spotted winged Drosophila, but there are other potential pests. So kind of like, but then you talked about other beneficial insects, not pollinators. I imagine some of these plants may host like I don't know, parasitic wasps or something that would go into the blueberry field and do natural pest control and things like that. So you're looking at both of those.
Exactly. So
Huh.
whereas pollinator habitat can have abundant benefits for increasing pollinator populations in the area, it can also really increase IPM services or integrated pest management services by increasing the beneficial insects, like you mentioned, of beneficial wasps, predator insects that really go and eat or parasitize the bad bugs that might be in production areas in blueberry fields. So by putting in this pollinator habitat, you can increase and your pest management system and reduce the pests within your fields. So through this program and this, what we're trying to do is decipher the plants that are beneficial for, rather than potentially detrimental to your blueberry facilities.
Okay. So that was the first objective. So kind of
Yes.
like, so the grower, would be able to both. There's new research, but also literature review. They'll be able to go flip to the guide and say, "I want to plant this." Oh, wait a second, this. Or they might say, "This is going to have a pest problem," and they'll say, "Oh no, this has been shown to have beneficial insects, so I'll plant that." So it gives them like they can go through the Rolodex and say, almost like go into a store and they'll be like, "Oh, these are the ones I want."
Exactly. And then for the second objective, it's very much hand in hand with that first objective. It's creating a tool for these growers that's very user friendly so that they can punch in plants that they are interested in, or if they might be of concern, or they have in their habitat, or even pests that they're concerned about in their area. And it'll give them a pop-up based on their specific habitat or interest in creating habitat. And tell them which plants would be beneficial or might host certain pests. So making a very user-friendly tool to really show them which alternate host plants are best or not best in their blueberry production areas.
Okay, amazing. But so when will this be available?
It's currently underway. We still are doing development, so it'll be soon. Within, I believe it's 2024, it'll be available, not the beginning, but more so towards the middle or end. Yeah.
This is really great. I love this integration between, working directly with growers, thinking about where the habitat can go, but also providing these incentives for offsetting costs for establishing habitat. But, furthermore, also coming up with tools to help them really think about their crop and which plants make the most sense. This is a really impressive set of programs.
Yeah, it's been exciting to work on, especially working across different commodity groups, hearing the different obstacles that each group comes across or different things that would be incentivizing towards putting in habitat. So it's been a pleasure working with blueberry growers, working with vineyard operators, and as well as apple orchards and so on and so forth. It's just been very eye-opening to see which group is focusing in on which obstacles they have to come across.
Now, if I'm a grower listening to this show and I'm in the region, how do I get involved? How do I get going with this?
I would first reach out to or go to pollinator.org and then find the Bee Friendly Farming website. We recently updated our handbook, so that way it's very hands-on for growers to be able to use the structure that we have as far as how to implement pollinator habitat. You can reach out to me at any point at cody@pollinator.org, as well as bff@pollinator.org. I manage both accounts, so that way I'll be able to offer any technical assistance that growers might need. But we're here to really assist growers in any way possible to really implement pollinator habitat, whether that's financial or just the know-how as far as what plants and where to install.
Amazing, Cody. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk with me. This is a great initiative, and it's really nice to see it starting to flourish in the Pacific Northwest region.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on today.
Thank you so much for listening. Show notes with links from each episode are available at the website pollinationpodcast.oregonstate.edu. I also love hearing from you, and there's a form at the website where you can pop in and say hello and give me feedback. If you want to support the show, remember to leave a rating on iTunes, Spotify, or whatever podcast mothership you use. And finally, if you have the means and you want to help support my lab's effort to document bee biodiversity in Oregon, visit OregonBeeAtlas.org and follow down to the donate button where you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Jerry and Judith Paul Native Pollinator Endowment. Every little bit helps. See you next episode.